One of the hardest parts about dating isn't attraction. It's realizing too late that you've invested in somebody who can't actually meet you. And the tricky part is, early on, people are usually on their best behavior, where potential and chemistry can mask a lot. So it can be really hard to tell if someone's emotionally available or whether you're about to invest in someone who wants connection but doesn't actually have the capacity to meet the needs of a committed relationship. In this video, I want to walk you through 5 signs to pay attention to, not as red flags or diagnoses, but as patterns that can potentially save you months or even years of heartache if you can ask the right questions to spot them early enough. Now, no single one of these is inherently a deal breaker, but if they have 3 of the 5, tread lightly. And if they have the last one, that really doesn't bode well. Now, for each of these, I'm going to show you the pattern, identify the question to ask, and then what to look out for in their response. The first pattern, they're obsessed with work. Now, this can actually go for any substance or behavioral addiction, but workaholism is probably the most insidious because of how widely revered and praised it is by our culture, our society. So say you meet someone who's a high achiever and who works a lot. That comes with a very attractive trait, which is ambition. But ambition coupled with a work ethic that is imbalanced is likely going to cause problems later on in the relationship, because when push comes to shove, they're probably going to prioritize that relationship first. And this isn't to say that everyone who's a high achiever or who values work is emotionally unavailable, but oftentimes having a high demanding job requires a certain degree of compartmentalization of feelings, deprioritization of needs and other values outside of work. I'm looking at you, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and it can also be a way to avoid discomfort that's coming up internally. For myself, when conflict arises in my relationship, that feels really uncomfortable. A little ironic as a relationship coach, right? But I notice this immediate impulse or urge to go just pour myself into work as a distraction. So then my work is to resist that urge and stay present with the uncomfortable feelings that come up, stay present in my relationship. So if somebody has this pattern without the awareness or ability to regulate that, that's going to impair their ability to be really present and vulnerable with you. So the question to ask is not what they do for work, which most people ask on a first date anyways. It's what is their relationship with work? And what else do they value outside of work? And what we're looking for, hopefully, is a work-life balance. But if they don't have that work-life balance, then do they have an awareness of the imbalance? Do they have an intention? Do they make effort to try to balance this out? And are they able to identify other values and demonstrate ways in which they support their life outside of just work? How they answer this question demonstrates just how much space they actually have in their life for you. The second pattern, too little or not enough time since their last relationship. This isn't about judging how long it took, because that's a very subjective experience and no two people are alike, but rather noticing what their process was or wasn't. We're gauging their capacity to sit with hard feelings that come with the loss of an attachment bond and their ability to fill their cup outside of a romantic relationship. So the question to ask here is, what did they do to get over their ex? And what we're looking for is, first and foremost, did they? Because if they're still actively grieving, if they're regularly crying about it, which is okay, by the way, that would be a pretty strong signal that they probably shouldn't even be on a date right now with you. And somebody doesn't necessarily have to be completely over their last relationship before they get into a new one, but they should be pretty well along. Oftentimes that new relationship can be so profoundly healing and help to fully let go of the last relationship, but it shouldn't be the primary method that they use, which is the other side of the coin that we're gauging. Did they really allow themselves to grieve? Or did they just get back up on the horse? When my last relationship ended, Somebody asked me how I was doing, and they didn't know that I was in a relationship that ended. So I told them that I was feeling really sad. I was processing a lot of grief from the end of this really long-term relationship. It was 7 years. And they said to me, I give myself 2 weeks max to feel sad. And then I just got to pick myself up by the bootstraps and keep on going because there's no point in wallowing. That sort of response is a blatant red flag. Somebody has very little ability to sit in the heaviness of their own grief, their own sadness. They have little ability to accept that the sadness exists and it's going to take as long as it takes. And they're invalidating their own emotional experience. And if that's somebody's pattern, they're likely going to do that to you, or they still have walls around their heart and you're not really going to be able to fully access them. And then the final piece of this that you're looking for is whether or not they're still carrying any active anger or resentment towards their ex. And if they are, then why is that? If they're still angry or resentful, I almost guarantee that it's justified, but it's also going to impact how open they are with you. And that's not inherently a bad thing. Relationships can be such a healing presence, but it's also going to require a certain degree of patience and curiosity with them in order to help them to move through that and let go. I talk more about this in my 7 green flags video. The link on the screen should be right here if you want to check that out. The third pattern, serial dating. A pattern of serial dating often indicates deeper commitment issues or attachment patterns that ultimately get triggered and lead to the end of the relationship. And then speaking to, the last pattern is they jump right into a new one without really giving themselves space to fully process the end of the previous. And the questions to ask here are, what's their longest relationship? How many impactful relationships have they been in? And why didn't those relationships work out? Now, this isn't about looking for a set amount of time because, again, you can't be the judge of that, but rather looking for patterns. Because if there's a common time frame or reason that these relationships ended, pay attention to this. They are the common denominator in all of these relationships. And so what makes you think that this time will be different? It might, but use their responses to all these other questions to help you discern wisely. The fourth pattern, they're afraid to feel. Most people aren't going to say that they're afraid to feel, but do they demonstrate an avoidance or inability to feel a really broad range of emotions? Because if they do, there's a reason for that. Some part of them doesn't want them to feel certain feelings, and so it protects them from that. But our ability to feel anything is directly correlated to our willingness to feel everything. And so if somebody doesn't have the ability or willingness to feel certain uncomfortable feelings, that's going to impair their ability to feel all the good things too, and ultimately be truly vulnerable with you. And you're probably not going to find this out naturally early on. So the questions to ask are, when was the last time that you felt sad, that you cried, that you felt angry, that you felt joy? What you're looking for is not necessarily concrete memories, but how willing or open they are to even go there with you, to even consider this question. And when they consider it, do they struggle to recollect memories of when they are sad or when they cried, when they're angry or joyful? Does it come really easily? Do they seem embarrassed? Do they reject the validity of feeling sad or crying? Now, if somebody can't recall the last time that they cried or felt sad or angry, that's not necessarily the indicator that they're not emotionally available, but gauging openness and willingness to engage in this conversation with you. Then lastly, the fifth pattern. If they demonstrate this one, I would say it's the only one that is in and of itself a deal breaker. They don't value personal and relational growth. Now, what constitutes valuing personal growth varies widely and is subjective. So get off your high horse and don't compare their answer to what you do as if what you do is the best. But again, we're looking for openness, because if they don't value personal and relational growth, then they're not somebody you can grow with. They're not somebody who is going to stay with you through your evolution as a human being, who's going to stay present with you through the difficult emotional moments that are going to come in life. And they will come because you are either approaching a difficult time in your life, you are in that difficult time, or you have just surmounted it and you're riding the wave back down into the valley. And you need someone who will be really supportive and want to grow with you through all of those seasons. So the question to ask is, do they work with or have they worked with a therapist or coach? Now, this isn't the end all be all. Somebody doesn't have to have, gone to therapy in order to be a green flag. It's not a red flag just because somebody hasn't gone to therapy. But what we're looking for in their response, again, it comes down to openness. How do they receive this question? They either are currently working with somebody and hopefully are pretty open with you about their experience, even if they don't go into the details. If they're not working with somebody, then are they open to talking about it? Is it something they've thought about? Is it something they're curious about or want to get into? Or if they're not working with somebody, do they reject the idea of it? Do they mock the need for therapy, coaching, support groups, anything like that? Because if somebody rejects this process that is so profoundly supportive, insightful, and deeply healing, that expands self-awareness and improves interpersonal relationships, then that's a pretty big glaring red flag. If that's the case, I would consider walking away from that one. But if they're open to talking about it, then the follow-up questions are, if they've worked or have worked with somebody, then what have they learned about themselves through that process? And how have they integrated it? Because that second piece, integration, is what matters more than just what they've learned about themselves. Because knowledge isn't power if it's not put into action. Somebody who goes to therapy and knows a lot about themselves but is still an asshole is still not somebody you want to be in a relationship with. But if they've really improved their interpersonal relationships through what they've uncovered about themselves, boom, that's a green flag. And then if they've never worked with somebody, ask them what experience in their life has taught them the most about themselves. And then again, look for not only the insight, but how they've integrated that insight. Their answer to this question can single-handedly override their answers to all the other questions, because nobody's perfect. But if they value personal and relational growth and they have some modicum of self-awareness, then that's somebody you can work with. And personal growth can look like therapy or coaching. It can look like yoga. It can look like meditation, journaling, breathwork, going to retreats, support groups, sobriety groups, any or all of the above. But all of those create the conditions for two imperfect people to grow and heal together. And there you have it. These are the 5 most telling signs to gauge how emotionally available somebody's going to be with you. To recap, those patterns are obsessed with work, little time or no process after their last relationship ended. They have a pattern of serial dating. They're afraid to feel, and they don't value personal and relational growth. Again, no single one of these tells the full story that they're just going to be emotionally unavailable. But if they have 2 of the 5, that's information, and the odds increase. If they have 3 of the 5, then I would tread lightly. And if they demonstrate the last pattern, I would probably walk from that because you won't be able to grow with them. At the same time, the goal here isn't to be judgmental, guarded, and approach relationships with a cynical skepticism. It's about improving your discernment, giving people the benefit of the doubt, and allowing them to show you who they are, and trusting yourself to make the right decision for you. We're complex, dynamic, and ever-changing as human beings, all wanting and deserving of love. Sometimes we just need a chance. If you got something out of this video, make sure to hit subscribe and leave a comment. It helps this channel reach more people like you who are focused on building self-trust, healing old wounds, and building relationships that can stand the test of time. Thanks for watching. See you next time.